Geno Smith just got ranked higher than a bunch of guys making double his salary, and the national media is actually giving the Raiders some love. But is this real progress or just more off-season noise? And what's the deal with Jaylen Ramsey possibly landing in Vegas? Today, I'm breaking it all down, from quarterback rankings to roster upgrades, and whether the Raiders are finally building something real under Pete Carroll. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. Let's start with that buzz around Jaylen Ramsey. Over the past week, multiple insiders, including Cameron Wolfe and Steve Wyche from NFL Network, have been reporting that Ramsey is likely on his way out of Miami. The Dolphins don't want to carry a massive cap hit, and Ramsey reportedly wants a fresh start. Now, here's the important part for Raiders. The Dolphins will take a $25 million cap hit if they trade him before July 1st, but only around $7 million if they move him after that. That date, July 1st, is the key. Everyone's watching it. What makes this even more interesting is the chatter around Ramsey's position flexibility. According to Steve Wyche, who has spoken directly with Ramsey and people close to him, Ramsey has opened up to the idea of transitioning from cornerback to safety. That's massive. That's how Charles Woodson extended his career and stayed dominant in Oakland. If Ramsey is serious about making that shift and willing to do it in the right environment, then Vegas might make a lot of sense. It would be a bold move by the front office, but if they're serious about turning this defense into a playoff-caliber unit, adding a versatile vet like Ramsey could be a game-changer. And it's not just about reputation, it's about fit. Remember, Raheem Morris is now in Atlanta and Ejiro Evero is in Carolina. Both coaches Ramsey has history with. But Vegas? That name keeps popping up because at one point, Jaylen Ramsey reportedly wanted to be a Raider. Whether that desire still exists is unclear, but what's obvious is this: the Dolphins are done. They're already preparing their younger corners to step up, and their defensive coordinator has said, quote, "Relationships are hard, and he's chosen to move on." That's not subtle. Now, let's shift to the real meat of this conversation, the quarterback rankings. Because Pro Football Focus just dropped a list that sent shockwaves across NFL. They ranked all 32 starting quarterbacks heading into the 2025 season. And the most eyebrow-raising part? Geno Smith came in at number 10. That's Tier 3A. Solid starters who flashed high-end play, right behind guys like Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. That's not a bad place to be. But here's the kicker. Justin Herbert? He was ranked number 1, 8, in Tier 2, which sounds great on paper, until you read the reasoning. According to PFF, Herbert is the best regular season quarterback in non-clutch situations. Think about that. He's elite, as long as the game isn't close. That's not the compliment people think it is. In fact, PFF straight up said his passing grade tops Patrick Mahomes, but only when you exclude the playoffs. That word, exclude, changes everything, because what's the point of grading a quarterback if you're not going to count what matters most? You can dominate September through November, but if you fold in January, nobody cares. Justin Herbert has all the tools, no doubt. Big arms, smooth mechanics, freakish athleticism. But if you've watched this guy up close, you remember him standing on the sidelines at Allegiant Stadium in 2021, begging for a tie. You remember the Texans' playoff meltdown, 1 touchdown, 4 picks. That's not elite. That's a talent who still hasn't proven he can carry a team through the fire. Meanwhile, Geno Smith, who's been cast off, traded, benched, and ignored, is quietly putting together a resume that demands respect. Over the past 2 seasons, his passing grade was just 0.2 points shy of Mahomes. Let that sink in. And yes, he's walking into a Raiders offense that lost some receiving talent compared to Seattle. But he's also playing behind what might be the best offensive line of his career. And most importantly, he's got 2 weapons that change everything: Ashton Jeanty and Brock Bowers. We're going to say this again because it's worth repeating. This might be the best chance the Raiders have had at a balanced modern offense in a decade. Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll are cooking up something serious. According to insiders, they're experimenting with creative blocking schemes in practice, not gimmicks. Real concepts built to maximize Jeanty's vision and burst. If this run game starts clicking, Geno is going to find more wide-open windows than he ever did in Seattle. Why? Because defenses will be forced to respect the box. Ashton Jeanty isn't just a bruiser. He's got legitimate home run speed. And his receiving ability? It's special. His trainer, Ronnie Braxton, recently described his route running as wide receiver level. Not just for a running back, for a receiver. That's what separates him. You don't need him to be Christian McCaffrey, but if he gives you even 60% of that receiving upside, that opens up play action, screens, wheel routes, and keeps linebackers honest. You combine that with Brock Bowers, who's already being called the best tight end prospect since Kyle Pitts, and suddenly this Raiders offense becomes dangerous and unpredictable. And speaking of weapons, let's not forget Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, and Dante Thornton Jr. Myers might be the most underrated possession receiver in football. He doesn't drop passes, period. Tucker and Thornton are speedsters. They haven't proven much yet, but they can stretch a defense and create vertical threats that open up space underneath. That's exactly the kind of receiving core that complements a quarterback like Geno Smith, a guy who's accurate, smart, and doesn't need to force anything. Now, let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just about Geno Smith, it's about how the Raiders are building. Because for once, it looks like there's a plan. Pete Carroll is leading. John Spytek is scouting and drafting like someone who's done this before. And most importantly, it doesn't feel chaotic. It doesn't feel like we're guessing. It feels like there are adults in the room. And that is a huge shift from the past few years. We've heard the stories. 29 coaches on staff last year. Players meeting behind the scenes to talk about wasted time. Lack of structure. That's not the vibe anymore. Pete Carroll is out there running with the team. Literally. His shirt's dirty. His hands are taped. He's bouncing from drill to drill. If your 72-year-old head coach is sprinting around, guess what? You had better move too. That kind of leadership creates accountability, and it shows. And yeah, the offensive line is still a question, especially at guard. You've got Colton Miller and DJ Glaze locked in at tackle. Jackson Powers-Johnson is likely your starting center. But the guard spots? That's still up in the air. Guys like Jordan Meredith, Dylan Parham, and maybe even Caleb Rogers are in that mix. If the Raiders can get just average guard play, this line has the potential to be solid, not elite, but not a liability either. And for a team that wants to run the ball and protect a QB like Geno, that's all you need. Let's not overlook the AFC West context here, because that's a massive part of why this script matters. The Raiders don't play in a soft division. They're not trying to sneak into a weak wild card spot. They're competing in what is arguably the most brutal division in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes still runs Kansas City. Justin Herbert, flawed or not, is still one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks in football. And now you've got Bo Nix, a young dynamic playmaker who surprised a lot of people as a rookie in Denver. If you're going to make noise in this division, you better be ready for war every single week. Let's talk about Bo Nix for a moment. PFF has him in Tier 4, young players with a wide range of potential outcomes. But don't sleep on him. He had a rocky start, sure, but after those first 4 games, he turned it on and posted one of the best grades in the league down the stretch. That's not a fluke. That's a guy who figured it out fast. If Denver builds around him the right way, they could be a serious problem. There's also something to be said about John Spytek's presence in the front office. This isn't just another talent scout taking a swing. This is a guy who helped build the Super Bowl roster in Tampa Bay. He understands how to find undervalued players. He knows when to invest in veterans and when to let young guys grow. Look at the offseason moves. No wild free agency splashes, but smart, targeted additions. They're clearly trying to build a long-term contender, not just a one-year wonder. So there's a long road ahead. The offensive line still needs to prove itself. The defense needs to find more playmakers. The AFC West is a buzzsaw. But if you're a Raiders fan, cautious optimism is absolutely justified. And if you're the rest of the league, you'd better start paying attention.